Hello, YouTube friends. I am going to read an article that I am going to just start reading myself regarding Danielle Allen, a Democrat candidate for Mass governor, wants to decriminalize drugs, including heroin. And it's kind of like this is part of the Boston Medical News. And she seems like she's protesting it. Justice Health Safe, Danielle Allen for Massachusetts. So let's read it. Um, Danielle Democrat Allen, a candidate for governor, announced a drug decriminalizing policy proposal on Wednesday in front of the Massachusetts State House. Danielle Allen, a Harvard professional candidate, said that if elected, she would push to decriminalize all controlled substances by eliminating state criminal penalties for small amounts of heroin, cocaine, and other drugs. Allen said the proposal, which she released Wednesday, would keep criminal charges in place for large amounts of drugs that would trigger distribution of trafficking charges. She would seek to reclassify nonviolent personal use for possession as a criminal violation subject to a fine, arguing Massachusetts' current approach to I can't read. Excuse my reading. To policizing drugs and failing to stem a still raging opiate epidemic. The campaign pitched edges into uncommon territory for a Massachusetts statewide candidate, writing a drug policy including a memoir in which she dubbed herself Legalizer. It could serve as a differentiator between her and her primary rivals, Attorney General Maura Haley and State Senator Sonia. I cannot read her last name. Let's see, Ching Diaz, both whom on Wednesday refrained from embracing the idea. We've got more than 5 people a day dying. We're not getting the job done, Allen, a Cambridge Democrat, told the Globe, pointing to the more than 2,000 fatal overdoses the state recorded over years between 2016 and 2020. The state reported 1,613 opiate-related deaths through the first 9 months of last year. You can get the job done if you leave the stigma of criticizing in place. The charges she pushes would require approval in the Democrat-controlling legislature, which resists calls to decriminalizing or legalizing marijuana before voters approve those charges through 3 separate ballot questions in 2018, 2012, and 2016. They are likely to face resistance from law enforcement, including from those who've embraced steering opiate uses for arrest and into treatment. Certainly, arrest is a last resort, but in some cases, it is an effective tool to force someone into jail setting, if necessary, where they have access to treatment if nothing else works. And John Rosenthal, founder and board of chairman of Police Assisted Addiction and Recovery, which he said opposes decriminalizing of personal use possession, including heroin. There's no reason, in quotation, she says, there are no reason to throw that tool out of the toolbox, he said. Governor Charlie Baker and lawmaker have poured resources into fighting the opiate crisis, passing 2 legislative packages since 2015, seeking to make the overdose reversing drug naloxone. I can't say that word. It's Naloxone. More widely available and providing funding to expand the number of available beds for those seeking addiction treatment. Baker last week called Massachusetts a national leader into fighting against the opiate addiction in the State of Commonwealth address. Yet opiate deaths have continued to hover at near record level both in Massachusetts and across the country, fueling cause for more aggressive and different strategies. Rhode Island, for example, became the first state to authorize so-called overdose prevention and supervised injection sites statewide, allowing for places where people can consume ILLICIT drugs where medical supervision. It also have passed a new law last year reclassifying personal use possession of 10 grams or less of certain drugs, such as cocaine, fentanyl, as a misdemeanors, joining Massachusetts and the 19 other states that deflaws drug possession, according to Rhode Island officials. New York opened the country's first supervised injection center in November, and Somerville has sought to do the same. Allen said, which is the woman who's doing this for Massachusetts, Allen said she believes there's a place of state open-minded prevention centers in Massachusetts, but it's forcing her entitled policy pitch on promise to provide support for MUNICIPA run centers. Attitudes towards marijuana has also shifted nationally. 18 states have legalized, recriminalized cannabis, including Connecticut last year. Still, decriminalizing of so-called hard drugs is widely considered a more radical option, though not an unperceivable one. Oregon votes in 2020 above ballot measuring elimination of criminal penalties for personal use of drugs, providing what Allen called a framework for potential Massachusetts laws. Decriminalizing holds a lot of promise, and Commonwealth should absolutely pursue it, said Leo, I cannot say his last name, Belesky, a Northeastern University associate professional of law and health science, who been critical of Baker's response to the crisis. It is necessary but not sufficient. Also, Allen said she would seek changes in line with a bill filed by state representation of Liz Miranda of Boston and Mike Connolly, Connoly, of Cambridge, which would limit fines to $50 and waive them in person participants in screening to identify health and other service needs. Also, Allen said if a person doesn't pay their fines, they would not face further penalties, nor would there be a strike system subjecting them to jail time for the third offense, according to her proposal. This is about making sure we deliver help, not handcuffs, Allen says. In a field of progression, Democrats, Allen appears alone in pursuing the idea. A spokeswoman for Haley, currently the state laws enforcement official, did not say whether the South End Democrat supports the idea. She is given guided by families mostly deeply impacted by the opiate crisis every step of the way. Carissa Hand said of Haley's written statement, their forces will continue to guide her approach as governor. Here's a name I still can't say. Chang Diaz said she's open to considering decriminalizing, but emphasizes her tools that the state already has. Jamaica Plain Democrat has touted a bill, TOUTED, a bill she filed to pour funding into programs that would dispatch behavior and mental health professionals and nonviolent calls instead of police. We know that someone is in the moment of a crisis. A person with a gun is often the wrong response, she said in a state. George Diehl, Republican candidate for governor, said he has open to discussion safe injection sites and to intervention tool, but dismissed decriminalizing an option, saying it would make a bad public safety situation even worse. Allen's family only struggles inform her approach to this policy. She said a young cousin, also named Danielle Allen, struggled with opiate addiction before her death of last year. In her 2012 memoir, Cuz, C-U-Z, in quotations. She both recounts the life and death of another cousin, Michelle, or Michael, Michael. At 16, it was a boy, so Michael. At 16, he was sentenced to nearly 13 years in prison after an attempt of carjacking, and after a second stint in prison, was murdered at 29 and examines the war on drugs, writing it as an overload in the criminal justice system and nonviolent offense. That's horrible. She also the city's was called a parastate run by drug gangs. To overthrow it, she writes, you have to legalize it. Does legalization of marijuana everywhere and decriminalizing hard drugs sounds like the turning the world upside down. She wrote, here's what's been turned upside down. The girl. So basically, she's explaining that, and this girl who also tried to be squeaky clean has turned into a proponent of legalizing drugs, including even decriminalizing heroin, even though she has relatives reunited but just incarcerated, but by addiction too. It has become legalizer. In an interview, Allen noted that now a candidate, she had not advocated legalizing all drugs by reclassifying them. This has been motivating for me a long time, she says, and I believe this is the path forward. I found that, now that I just read that for the first time, 100% agree with her. Also, the stigmatism is terrible. People are very uneducated. Please educate yourself. People are ruining people's reputation and their lives. People need to respect people in recovery. It is horrible to do to a human being. Please be respectful just like you would be respected. I think that there's in-between laws, and she's absolutely right, and it's terrible. So people should really look into their shit before they start talking it. Thank you for subscribing to my YouTube. I'm going to continue reading this. I love this Boston medical information, and I'm going to continue with the education for myself and others. And I just think it's terrible. And there's different resources that people can reach out to, and people during it. Don't be that person that doesn't help somebody in recovery. That makes you just as bad as someone using drugs to me. So be respectful, understanding, be humble, draw a line, where people are disrespecting you. And I think people can improve someone's life easily. So if you want to be a winner, you might start talking like one and respect people and educate yourself, because you're ruining people's lives easily. Anyways, my camera was really up there. So anyways, that was interesting. I hope you guys have a fabulous evening. If you want, please subscribe. I have writing of mine that I like, and it's interesting, of different topics of my life. So, please check out my Patreon, and check out that newsfeed and find your own opinion on it, because it's something that this one woman is standing for in Massachusetts. So thank you. I hope you have a wonderful day, and God bless. Bye, guys.